Looking for photography tips, inspiration, ideas, or anything about film? Well, you've come to the right place. Born in Film and Photo Nation present Film Factor Podcast. Follow us on our social platforms at Born in Film on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
return you now to your regularly scheduled program.
When your camera is made by Kodak, you know it's good.
Tonight, I'd like to show you one of the world's great cameras.
Tonight, I'd like to show you a new idea in picture taking.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up.
I see the picture in my mind's eye, and I give it to you as the equivalent of what I saw and felt.
We choose to go to the moon.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We will never forget that we are analog human beings.
My job is to be authentic.
We all love stories. We're born for them.
Coming to you live from Stratobox Studios in Manila, Philippines.
Mass at 4 a.m. for 9 straight days.
Singing carols in Tagalog, or well, trying to.
Enjoying festive treats such as puto bongbong and bibingka.
Picking out paroles,
which have been on sale since September. Yep, that's the Philippines for you. Christmas from September to January pretty much.
You know the season starts once you hear Jose Marie Chan songs everywhere. It seems like more than any other holiday, Filipinos just absolutely love Christmas. Not just because of the vibrant lights,
the get-together with loved ones, the amazing food that is served, the conversations and laughs along the way, or even the generous gifts.
All of these play their part in creating amazing memories every single year.
Above all, Filipinos just love to give love.
Maligayang Pasko sa inyong lahat.
Hey guys, welcome back to Film Factor Podcast. My name is Franz and tonight we are back with Born in Film on air. But before we begin, again we are live simulcast on Facebook Live, IGTV, and YouTube. So for our friends who are there or who are here, happy Sunday. Our hotline is now active. Don't forget to call us on Viber. Our hotline is now active. Don't forget to call us on Viber. It's at 63921-408-8898, or just simply scan this QR code and it will bring you to Viber. We will be accepting questions for our guests and greetings later within the podcast. Also, we have a new feature, which is the live polls, where you can actually vote live on the podcast. The question for tonight is, do you think it's harder to pursue street photography now that we have a global pandemic? Again, all you need to do is scan the QR code with your cell phone, just turn on the camera, and it will bring you to the polling website. Again, we would like to thank each of you for being a huge part of this passionate community. We now have 8,400 members across 101 countries. We are now only 1,600 away to our next goal, which is 10,000 members worldwide. Not too long ago, began a series of live podcasts within PhotoNation. The very first one we aired on April 5, where we talked about the importance of printing with Alvin Lee. From there, we met photographers like Australian marine life photographer Darren Chu from the Tales by Light series on Netflix, and Nicola Kostek, a passionate photographer from Belgrade, Serbia. We jumped from landscape photography with Fitz Bore to the life of expat photographers with Arnold Apostol in Singapore. We also talked about women and their photography with Alex Songkal, a Filipino photojournalist, Imbal Christine, a concept photographer from Israel, and Tran Hong Young, a Vietnamese nude photographer. All of these episodes can be seen on both our YouTube and Facebook page. They're also on Spotify. Just search for Film Factor Podcast. New episodes are updated every Monday afternoon, Manila time, and early morning Eastern and Pacific US time, as well as afternoon European time. If you miss an episode, do check them out later. We have replays every Monday. Street photography and photo walks have been put on hold during this lockdown in regards to the safety protocols implemented, but yet some see this as an opportunity to document the streets the way it has never been since the last pandemic. Tonight, we will be joined by street photographers who are at the forefront of this field and share their insights in street photography. Let's all watch this.
Portraits have always been what's interesting to me.
I'm happy to greet this gathering of motion picture engineers.
Art is photography and sharing. Taking what you see and sharing it with others.
Don't be afraid. Get out there, shoot some film. I think PhotoNation can be a catalyst.
Photography isn't denied.
Again, we're a live simulcast on Facebook Live, IGTV, and YouTube. Don't forget to follow the page, join PhotoNation, and hit subscribe. Joining us tonight are street photographers who are at the forefront of this field. First up, we have David Banta, a street photographer and landscape artist who travels with a purpose. Together with Albert Rañada, an urban landscape photographer who also does product photography. And last but definitely not least, we have Ryan Lim, an analog photographer who specializes in both street photography and photojournalism from England. Good evening, everyone. Hold on, let me just show you up on screen. And there we go. Good evening.
Hello, evening.
Hi, Ryan. So again, we have David Banta, we have Albert Rañada, and Ryan Lim with us tonight. So just to jump off, maybe we can begin with the first question, which is, if you can introduce yourself, what you do, and if you can define street photography into one word, what would it be? Maybe we can begin with David. Go ahead.
David Banta. I'm a retired photographer. I've been a lot of other things as well. One word. Exciting.
Exciting. Really good from David. Maybe you can hear from Ryan. Ryan, what can you say about street photography, and maybe you can also introduce yourself. Hold on, let me pen you into screen. Hold on, I'll just pen you into screen. Anyway, go ahead, Ryan.
Hello, hi. I'm Ryan. I've just left university. I've just left university. I studied photojournalism there, and I'm looking at turning into a bigger career. Now, street photography in one word. Interesting.
Interesting.
You do not know what you're going to find. Went out this morning, found a coronavirus test center, and now I'm suddenly in a pub. So
Interesting.
every day is different.
Interesting. Thanks, Ryan. And then finally, we can we hear from Albert Rañada. Go ahead, Albert.
Hello guys, I'm Albert Rañada and I'm in the photography industry for 7 years now. I'm taking both product and urban landscape or cityscape photography. Street photography in one word, creative. Or later I'll discuss why creative. That's all.
Awesome. Again, it's good to have you guys here. I think Ryan is just in a pub. That's why. Anyway, again, it's great to have you guys here, and we appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. Maybe I can ask you about the second question. As a result of the global pandemic, lockdowns have been across the world. Has affected and the people, especially the photographers, and they've actually been enacted. How has this changed street photography, in your opinion? Maybe we can begin with Ryan. Go ahead, Ryan.
How has it changed? I'd say
I think
yeah. Maybe we can
Go
begin
ahead.
with Ryan. Go ahead.
I'd say it's changed quite differently because now previously you'd go out, you'd be trying to find expressions people, but depending on what stage of lockdown you're at, it could be no people or an overload of people. So it's at a case of you don't know what you're going to get. Yeah, I mean, with street photography, it's already quite random, but now it's even more of an unknown.
Great. And then maybe
I think I think for me, because of my age, I'm not as tempted to do street photography at all. When I have worn a mask. What I've taken to doing is driving the country roads where I live and looking for people. And I find them and we interact, and they're glad to see me because where I live out in the country, people are far and few between, or few and far between. So I'm doing less. I'm doing more landscape, and if I encounter people along the way, fantastic.
Awesome. And then maybe you can hear from Albert. Go ahead, Albert. I think you're on mute. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, can you repeat the question?
The question is, as a result of the global pandemic, lockdowns have actually been implemented or enacted. How has this changed street photography, in your opinion? Did you get that, Albert? Go ahead.
It's really difficult for us photographers to. Okay. Actually, it's quite difficult for us photographers to take photos during this pandemic. The street marshals are stricter compared before, but during this pandemic, it pushed me and pushed others as well to become creative. Creativity has no limits.
Creativity has no limits. Really good answer from Albert. And the next question is actually, at this time, people are still drawn to street photography, even if they're locked down at home, because of they're drawn to the empty streets and roads. In the photography that you do you think it has also affected the way you capture things? Why or why not? Maybe you can begin with David.
Yeah, like I said, it's cut my photography way back. So what I've ended up doing is making plans for the future. When this whole thing blows over, landscape photography has become my mainstay. And in these times when it's so fearful, the world's in very strange shape, it does me good to quiet things down for me.
Right.
Encountering people in street photography is difficult for me because I'm an introvert. So I'm using this time to store up creativity for the future.
Amazing. And then maybe you can hear from Ryan, who's in England. Hold on, let me ask you to unmute, and then go ahead, Ryan. What do you think?
Sorry, could you repeat the question one more time? Sorry.
The question is, people are actually now drawn into empty streets and roads. In the photography that you do you think it has also affected the way you capture things, especially you especially that you're a photojournalist?
Oh, definitely. I'm going to be honest. This has been my worst year in terms of how many pictures I've taken. It's different. You walk the streets at the moment now because lockdown's been lifted slightly in the UK. It's not as jarring, but in the initial stages of lockdown, it was strange. And all the more, I think Albert mentioned something about a police presence every so often. It's been interesting because over here the police aren't too familiar with the laws, and as a photojournalist, we're considered as key workers, so we're allowed to go out and shoot. But I've actually been threatened with arrest along with the local newspaper journalists who have also been threatened with, we will arrest you if we see you out with your camera, to the point where we had to file a complaint with the police. So it's not just the subjects that we shoot, it's now a case of actually being there at all, because now that there's the whole threat of arrest if you're out for too long and all that kind of stuff hanging over your head. It makes you question, how far do you want to push it? Do you want to push it so that you end up being one of yet another arrested journalist, or do you just sort of work around it? So it will be a case of photojournalists to work with the local law enforcement and think more carefully of how they shoot and who they shoot.
Amazing, very very insightful from Ryan. Since you mentioned that, Ryan, maybe we can ask you the next question, which is being able. Since you mentioned some of the changes that you've needed to adapt to, how important is being able to adapt, especially now that we have the pandemic, and in your photography, especially for those who are watching, how important is it to adapt?
Oh, definitely. You need to adapt. Like, to begin with, the job of a photojournalist is constantly adapting. One day you stood outside court for 3 hours trying to catch a murderer. Another day you're out running around doing God knows what at a protest. So now it's a case of more photographers need to take on this role of adapting, instead of previously it's a case of, I do street and street only and I don't do anything else, or I do studio and studio only. Now it's a case of everyone sort of needs to cross-train and cross-learn. Maybe I can explore out of my comfort zone to try something different, because maybe I don't have access to my usual landscape area or to studio models. And it really is a case of, I know I keep rehashing this, it's really a case of just adapting to whatever's the new lockdown rule, whatever's the new thing. Like, I think over the summer, because Britain was locked up quite well, I was doing a lot of macro at home. So that was new for me. But now that I'm back out again, I'm doing a bit more street again, and I'm having to work with law enforcement again. So you really don't know what's out there.
Great, really good insights from Ryan. Maybe we can hear from David. David, how important is it for people like you, especially you're in somewhere remote there in the US, and maybe you can share a bit of how you've also adapted in a way in terms of being able to also capture a landscape while you're on lockdown.
Sure. That's a great question. Early on in the pandemic, Um, the news here has pretty much been decimated by the fake news propaganda. So real photojournalism has taken kind of a back seat to entertainment and that sort of thing. So there were a couple of times where I took my camera and covered some events because I thought they were important here in our state and was not seeing coverage. One of them was a major flood like Michigan has never seen. It was historic. And I traveled there from where I am in Muskegon. Well, I'm near Reed City, which is in the middle of the state, up north a bit. And the major flood was on the east side of the state. So I traveled there, drove there, and covered that. And then another thing that was happening was people were carrying AK-47s and occupying the state capitol. They were actually in the lobby of the state capitol demonstrating against the governor for her, Governor Whitmer, using her executive power, much the way Trump has, but for a good cause, to limit the spread of the virus. So I thought, wow, I'm going down there, and I got some great shots. And that was cool.
Amazing. And Dave, just to interject, we understand that even if you have the pandemic, in terms of the situation there in the U.S., we understand that there's also what we call the Black Lives Matter. How has this affected, especially during the time of the pandemic? Were you able to capture some of those events in your area?
I did not. I have been working online a lot more politically. So I used the time to promote Black Lives Matter. I'm an older guy, and so the idea of being present where there's potential for street violence, it does not appeal to me as much as it did when I was younger. In my time, Vietnam was the issue, and I took to the streets then. The pandemic sort of limited my ability to jump into that, but I'm all for the promotion of BLM.
Great. And Dave, just to also ask you, since you mentioned adapting, how is the current situation now different? How different is it from the previous time that you mentioned, like back in the time of the Vietnam events that have been happening on the streets? How different is it now that we have social media?
I think it's better now in terms of the people who are united in thought can communicate with each other. This, however, with the pandemic, the social unrest, is one of the weirdest things in my lifetime. It makes the 60s look kind of tame.
Amazing, really good insights from David. Maybe we can move on to Albert, who doesn't just do urban landscape, but he has also adapted into. Or am I right, Albert? You did product photography first before urban landscapes. Maybe you can share with us what began, or how did you adapt to this? Go ahead.
Well, this pandemic affected any photographers greatly. Events, wedding photographers, and other gigs that you can shoot outside. So I wasn't able to capture urban landscape or cityscape shoots during the first 5 months of pandemic. It's because it's risky and the government prohibits you to go outside. So I switched, or I focus doing product photography, since there are businesses popping, and that's the only photography genre, one of the photography genres that you can do at home. Yes.
Great. And how did you feel being able to adapt also, and being able to connect with different products? And how does it feel being able to
It's
adapt?
cool. Yeah, actually, yeah, it's cool. I was able to hone my product photography skills more during this pandemic. I was able to master some techniques, or in shooting products. I was able to help as well. I'm doing product photography before this pandemic, and I was able to collaborate with more brands during this time.
Amazing. And I can see that most of your friends are watching with us
Yes.
tonight. Maybe you'd like to say hi to them.
Hi guys, thank you for sharing this post. And for those who wasn't able to post this post a while ago, please share it.
Awesome. And great. So maybe we can end with our final question before we move on to our break. The last question is actually, moving forward, what do you look forward into capturing after the lockdowns have been lifted? Maybe you can begin with Albert, since you're there. Go ahead.
After this pandemic, there will be a lot of people that will go outside, and will go on vacation. So there will be gigs, there will be like for weddings, events. So hopefully, the photography industry will boom again after this pandemic. There will be a lot. Yeah. So for those photographers that were demotivated because of what's happening right now, just believe in yourself, and photography industry will boom again after this pandemic.
Awesome. And then maybe we can hear from David. Hold on, let me just cue you on screen. Go ahead, David. Moving forward, what do you look forward to into capturing after the pandemic?
I went down to cover the first migrant wave in Mexico coming to the United States, and fell in love with Mexico. So I'm hoping that I can do some street in Mexico City would be great. Also, I want to take a bus and train trip, if I can, down to a friend of mine in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Wow.
I think that journey would be fantastic.
Could imagine. That's really something to look forward to. Thanks, David. Let's now move on to Ryan. Hold on, let me get Ryan on screen. Ryan, what do you look forward to after this pandemic?
I'm just looking forward to getting back to not needing to wear a mask every time I take a picture, because sometimes the mask gets in the way of the camera gets in the way of the mask. And I'm honestly just looking forward to interacting with people, because that was the best part about photojournalism, was interacting with people. Now, if you approach people, they sort of just run away. So it would be good to get back to what journalism used to be, and the variety of things, instead of just virus news every single day of the week.
Yeah. Somehow it's very tiring to hear about it over and over again, right?
Yeah, it just gets repetitive of where are you going to the hospital? Where are you going to the virus testing center? Any other new news? Nope. What about Brexit? Oh, don't bother about that. There's a virus going on.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Ryan. And on that note, we will be taking a quick break. Please stay with us. We will be moving on to another segment where we talk to our guests one by one. Please stay.
We are a proud generation of visual storytellers, young and old alike, across all gender, beyond ethnicity, thriving in an online community. Built in the Philippines for the world. From the streets of Intramuros to the ringing bells of Chalon-sur-Saône, atop the great mountains of the Himalayas to the deeps of the Great Barrier Reef. Across Asia, Europe, Oceania, Africa, and the Americas. We will tell stories. We are Photo Nation, and the passion will live on.
One of the things that makes anything more enjoyable is being able to share it and being part of a community.
And quite frankly, what I get from Photo Nation is the fact that it's so non-judgmental.
They're so accepting of people, and I like that about Photo Nation, that people are willing to do that.
Photo Nation is hindi lang siya Filipino-based international group. Ano siya, one big happy family talaga siya.
Photo Nation is just one huge family.
I think probably the thing I like the most about Photo Nation is the fact that it's a supportive community, not there to score points.
Photo Nation, a platform that has no bashing.
It's you ask for help, you get help. The best part about Photo Nation is that everyone gets a chance to showcase their stuff. And if you ask, how did you get that? Can you teach me? That people respond and they're like, yeah, I'm actually learning things here.
We all started as a beginner, whether it's you're self-taught or you learn from masters or you learn from YouTube. We should be humble enough to know and to accept that people who are willing to learn, we have to appreciate that because it's actually promoting the hobby or the passion that we love, which is photography.
Malaki talaga yung impact sa pag-i-improve ko as a photographer kasi hindi lang basics yung tinuturo, parang yung advanced stuff na.
I'm always welcome na idea na magkaroon ng isang community ang mga photographer. Yung imbis na magbangayan, nagtutulungan.
It feels really nice to be part of Photo Nation because of how active the group is. A lot of inspiration for me to take in.
Ko in-expect na ganito yung welcome ng Photo Nation sa akin.
Napagsama-sama ng Photo Nation ang mga photographer, anuman ang lahi nila.
I've met a lot of people from different regions sa country natin. Mas na-widen yung network ko.
Masaya kasi nakakapag-share ka ng free.
Yun na mas manada oportunidad. Pati health chances na mas kada grande din mi thinking about things na noy at na kalya ko nila.
Feel like I'm with a family that supports what I love and what I am passionate about. Mararamdaman mo na may value yung gawa mo and mas nakikita mo na there is an opportunity for you to grow in this industry.
I joined Facebook a year ago, and you are the first group I joined. One big international family. It's great to be part of Photo Nation International.
Aside from the photography memes, pinakagusto na ako sa Photo Nation is activities like Photographer of the Week and sa mga Team of the Week.
I was really happy to be featured as the Photographer of the Week. It really helps and boosts me.
One of the things I like about Photo Nation is the fact that it's not limited by any demographic, by any location, or by year.
Tuwang-tuwa ako kasi siyempre first time ko maging part ng isang member na may malaking community. Maganda experience ko.
Nakita na ko na daghang mga parehas na kong edad ang misulay og photography diri sa mga sa Dipolo.
Nakatabang siya ka mo-grow ko as a photographer. Maka-inspire siya sa mga kasama ko na bagungan pa. Pag-join ako aning Photo Nation kay at first kay nakulbaan ko ato kay international siya.
Pag-ayat ko ken to Photo Nation kay dagiti na dumaduma nga aktibidades kay Domingo kas dagiti pasalit nga pagkaka-recognizean dagiti kas kanyak nga agdadamo i fotografiya.
Người ta thường hay nói rằng là khi mà bạn muốn đi thật là nhanh thì bạn đi một mình, nhưng mà khi mà bạn muốn đi xa thì bạn sẽ đi cùng với cả những người khác. Thành ra là khi mà tham gia vào những cái group chơi ảnh như là Photo Nation thì nó giúp mình là sẽ nhìn được thấy rất là nhiều bức ảnh đẹp, và qua đó thì và cũng gặp rất nhiều là photographer giỏi. Thế thành ra là qua đó mình cũng được truyền cảm hứng hơn.
Aso pa na ako nung mag-join karang community. Uning mana kung dakal inspiration.
Yung first impression ko sa Photo Nation, walang toxic sa group. Parang dito sa Photo Nation nakaka-proud kasi parang nabibigyan ng voice yung mga Filipino.
I think Photo Nation is there. It's kind of feel like home. Alam mong this group will help you grow.
Sobrang ganda ng podcast quality. Yun yung magagawa ng Pinoy. So nakaka-proud din.
Nagulat din po ako lalo kasi almost around the world kasali ko. Parang ang laki pong privilege sa akin na sa Philippines po nag-start tong Photo Nation.
Pinoy pride kasi nga, di ba? Doon yung group is sa Pilipinas. So parang kaya natin makisabay at maliit tayong bansa.
I think Photo Nation parang for me, yung always active na ako.
Swerte gid ko kay naging part ko sa grupo ni. Hindi gid ni malimtan ang opportunity kag hindi ko gid pagsayawan.
Marami akong natutunan, lalo yung sa masterclass.
Photo Nation expanded my global knowledge, especially regarding Filipino photography. The Philippines seems to be pretty excited and actively pursuing the craft.
Feeling ko na welcome ka talaga kasi may mga toxic na mga tao. Nakakaugmat na nakaka-inspire sinda ng mga picture ninda na pinatawat, pinapailing sa mga bawat saro.
That worldwide photo walk, my gosh, I was surprised that many people showed up and it brought tears to my eyes. It was brilliant. There's so much love. I think that's the best way to say it. There's so much love in this community.
The truth is, this is merely a setback. This is merely one huge mountain that we have to traverse.
Okay, and welcome back to Film Factor Podcast. Now let's begin with one of our guests, Mr. David Banta. a street photographer and a landscape artist from Michigan who travels with purpose. He began his photographic journey in 1968, where he picked up an East German Praktika camera. In photography, he loves not knowing what he'll find with his lens and never comes back empty-handed. He says there are always wonderful surprises and discoveries in being a street photographer. Without further ado, let me welcome back Mr. David Banta. Hi, David. Welcome back.
Thanks, Franz.
Okay, so
thanks for having me on the podcast.
You're very welcome, and we love your portion on that video earlier. David, just to begin with the questions, your works are very outstanding. Given the time you've been into this craft, can you share with us how you began and what made you pursue street photography?
Sure. I grew up in Muskegon, Michigan. I started photographing at 16 primarily because my father used to keep extensive and meticulous photo albums using shots he took with early black and white Polaroids and with a Kodak Brownie. I had an uncle who photographed for boating magazines in Florida. He took me out on an assignment shooting a yacht race. And I was impressed by his working for magazines. He also took me to a shop where I saw my first Leica. Wow. And I think I probably drooled on the glass as I looked at it. Life magazine and National Geographic were big at the time. Photo magazines were big, photo stories. TV early on was black and white news. So I started thinking more in black and white. Much of the photography was as well. W. Eugene Smith's black and white photo essay in Life magazine on Dr. Albert Schweitzer, who was a missionary doctor in Africa, blew me away. It drew me in. I was drawn to street directly because we were midway between Chicago and Detroit. And whenever I visited those cities, I was mesmerized by the flow of people in those urban settings. I've always been a people watcher without a camera. So I turned to street photography when I actually worked up the guts to stick my camera in folks' faces, total strangers. It is not easy for me to do that. I am an introvert by nature, so when I approach somebody, the camera seems to put me more at ease. And I get better pictures with a camera.
Could imagine. Great.
At a later age, I joined ASMP, the American Society of Magazine Photographers, and shot magazine assignments pretty much regionally around Michigan, and was chief photographer at a weekly newspaper, as well as a corporate photographer at a hospital.
You've been around since those days. Really insightful from David. David, the influence of Sebastião Salgado and Henry Cartier-Bresson are very evident in your works, and we'll see them in a bit. Can you tell us more why you see them as some of the top photographers that you admire?
Sure. Cartier-Bresson especially drew me early on. I saw his work in Aperture magazine and in a British publication called Creative Camera, which featured a lot of street type work. The photo exhibit in Chicago that I saw of his just blew me away. I was so impressed with his use of the decisive moment. He was shooting full frame, maximizing use of the frame intentionally, placing subjects, and very strong design. Salgado had real emotion in his photographs. Because of both of those, I started following Magnum Photos and the photographers attached to that photo agency. Today, Brett Walker is somebody that I follow as well, and I think he's cutting edge. So all of these people move me towards the street.
Amazing. And then, David, as they say, being a street photographer, you capture not just the aesthetics of for the story. Can you also tell us about the importance of visual storytelling in photography, especially for those who haven't really tried street photography yet?
Sure. I was a writer professionally before I was a professional photographer. I had been shooting photographs for quite a long time, but pursued writing initially. So I was thinking in terms of, I wrote short stories, short fiction. I wrote features and business stories, and so putting a story together became second nature. When I became a full-time photographer, I then began to investigate telling stories in a single frame as well as multiple frames. So it was great to figure out. It's almost like scripting a film. Putting a photo story together. I'm sorry there aren't more outlets today for that.
And it's really important to have that, especially evident in your works, because that's what attracts people to see your work. And since you mentioned your works, David, let's now move on to some of the photos that you've actually sent us.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me just show them up on screen again. If you're watching this, don't forget to follow David on Instagram. It's at David R. Banta on Instagram. And his Facebook is facebook.com/David Banta Photography. And his website is davidrbanta.com. Okay, and let's now move on to your first photo, Dave. Here you go. Maybe you can tell us about this.
Sure. I traveled to New York City to do street photography on my way to Miami. And I like to travel by bus because I get lots of shots on the way between the stops. I call this umbrella lady. She passed by, and what I end up doing with photography quite often is singling out people and doing portraits. I don't think she even knew that I was photographing. And this is probably more distant than I tend to be. I try to get up closer. But initially it was in color and it was fairly strong, and I almost left it that way. But when I tried it in black and white, it blew me away. She looks like she's from another planet, frankly.
Amazing. And we love how the contrast worked on this photo. And now moving on to your next photo, maybe you can talk about this one. Hold on, let me just run the next one. Go ahead. Wow,
Sure.
we love the storytelling here. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. This was shot in Tijuana, Mexico. This was in the arena where they kept the families of the migrants who were traveling to the States from Central America. Originally, it was the Honduran caravan, but people came from other countries as well. So this was a group of people washing up in the morning, and the light in Mexico at times is extraordinary. And that's what was drawing me here. I'm drawn by the light that's going on. And oddly, if you look up in the left corner, it's a piece of the roofing, which gave it kind of a graphic quality. I like the graphic quality of this.
Amazing. And then your next one. Go ahead.
This was here in Michigan. I call it the Last Supper because there are kind of religious overtones to it, or undertones. I shot several frames of this. This is pretty much full frame. And when the woman turned and looked at me, the lighting on her face was extraordinary. And translating it in into black and white made it have kind of an ethereal feel.
It is really good. And then your next one, a colored one. Go ahead.
This was, somebody said that you're either black and white or you're either that or a color photographer. And I beg to disagree. I think with digital photography, it's so easy to translate it into black and white, or work with it in color, that I began to see more in color. This was in Atlanta, in South Atlanta, which was quite an amazing journey on foot. Atlanta, Georgia, which is in the deep south of the USA. And it was primarily African American neighborhoods. And I was the only white guy there. So it was pushing the limits once again, which I like to do in street photography. I saw these two guys sharing a bottle of liquor in this small area of woods surrounded by these beautiful wildflowers. And it became this very strange juxtaposition of a pretty poverty-stricken area with this incredible beauty.
Amazing. We love the photo. And then your last one. Go ahead.
This I actually had not utilized until this broadcast. I came across it as I was looking for photos. It's in a bar on the Lake Michigan shore of Michigan, and I called it Desire. There's a story here, and I think the story depends on how you enter into viewing the picture. I saw the guy who is in the center. He's an old man. He's hunched over, and it looks to me like he is making his move on a young woman in the bar. And there are women on the right and men on the left. And it became this intersection of not only the subjects in the middle, but the design above.
Yeah.
And the
colors.
colors screamed. The color just screams. You could not do this. It would be okay in black and white, but not nearly as good.
And the equality of it, we have two guys on the left side and two women on the other side, and it actually draws you to the center frame. Dave, we actually have one question here. One of the viewers who are actually watching us right now. A question from Hanilet. She asks, "Hi David, love your photos. Question for you: what were the difficulties encountered in street photography for you?"
I have been a follower of William Klein. He's an expatriate photographer living in Paris and a primarily black and white shooter. And his whole thing was getting up close. And that is the most difficult thing for me to do. The closest I've gotten was with a blind man who was actually sharing the gospel of Jesus on a street and handing out pamphlets. And I knew he was blind, so I kind of cheated and used a small camera. I've got a Panasonic Lumix, which is about this big, and put it in my hand right up by the pamphlets that he was passing out, and got an extraordinary picture. So I take risks, but in doing so, when I initially start shooting street photography, when I do a self project, it takes me a little while every time to work up the guts to do it. Once I'm doing it, I'm good with it, because nothing that happens is anything like I imagine.
Amazing, really good insights from David. And speaking of some of the things that you've already done, let's try to visit some of the works that you sent us. I mean, behind the scenes of your work. Hold on, let me just pull them up on screen. David, maybe you can share about the camera that you use. Go ahead.
Yeah, I am not a technical guy. I pretty much pick up a camera and identify aperture, shutter speed, autofocus, because my vision's not great anymore. I think what I love about this is a Fujifilm X Pro 2, is it's kind of a poor man's Leica. The optics are not as terrific as Leica, but the camera itself is extraordinary. I have taken that thing out intentionally in pouring rain to test it, and after shooting in pouring rain, I opened it up indoors and it was clean and dry. So it's pretty amazingly weather sealed. Lots of innovative settings that I do not use, but it's the kind of camera that you could keep a lifetime and still not know it all.
Amazing. And this is you out on the street. So maybe you can
Yeah.
talk about your experiences. How is it like being on the street?
A friend of mine, Mark Robb, took this picture. It's his shot. We were at we went to I believe it was the Art Prize Festival, which is a national festival in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I was photographing a street musician, and Rob got the shot.
Amazing. And we actually have two more questions for you from our viewers. We have one from Alan Mendez, Sir Alan, one of our previous guests last week from San Francisco. He's asking, "Hi David, how important is it for a professional photographer like you to become a member of an organization such as the ASMP?"
ASMP was extremely valuable in learning business practices. I worked in Grand Rapids, Michigan as a commercial photographer, primarily editorial, but also doing annual reports for corporations. And I was probably one of a handful of photographers who utilized a contract, probably to my demise as a commercial photographer. Many of the people were just doing a verbal agreement, and my idea in that was to make what your understanding of the clients what it is, what your understanding of the agreement is.
Amazing. Very, very insightful from David. David, your final question. How do you feel that you're part of Photo Nation? It's a global community of photographers. What are the top 3 things that you love about this group?
I think the energy that both you, Franz, and other members of the organization emit this kind of great energy of constantly upping the ante. And it also gives me a cultural view of the Philippines that I wouldn't have otherwise. And we've shared some of the things between you and I, Franz. That's been really interesting, and kind of deepens the community experience. Also, the Photo Nation International strives to be international. And one of my goals as a photographer who travels is to be a goodwill ambassador from the U.S. I think we need some, especially now.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you, Dave. Thank you for your
Yeah,
time.
you bet.
Thank you for your time tonight, and we appreciate you. It's an honor to have you here with us tonight. Thanks, Dave.
You bet.
Thanks, Dave. And on that note, let's now move on to our next guest. Next up, we have Ryan Lim, based in England. He is an analog photographer who does both street photography and photojournalism. He has been into photography for 11 years and believes that street photography is always a mainstay of photojournalism, where you need to learn how to conceal your camera yet still get the shots you need for work. Ryan loves the fact that not 2 days are ever the same, and once you meet people with interesting backstories, it's also a chance to know to know the reaction of people to your presence as a photographer. Without further ado, let me cue up on screen Ryan Lim, live from England. Hold on. Morning or good afternoon, Ryan.
Hi, afternoon. Well, you can't get any more English than this. I'm sat in a pub doing.
Hey, Ryan, just to jump in again, welcome back. Just to jump into the first question, aside from being a street photographer, you also do photojournalism. Can you tell us what got you into photography and why do you pursue these fields of photography? Go ahead.
Interestingly enough, what got me into photography was this hotel that caught fire in Singapore years ago. The whole place burned up, and I had a small Canon power shot at the time, and I was just interested in getting to cover it and get the pictures of the firemen coming out completely covered in soot, and the way the whole thing was handled. And I just wanted to tell that story of the fire crew who were dealing with the fire, how it happened, where did it start, and that sort of thing. And from there, it sort of just spiraled, and well, now I'm sat in a pub with like 3 cameras doing God knows what.
Amazing. And then, as a photojournalist who shoots street photography, can you share with us the most memorable shoot that you've been able to do?
Be a tough one. I said the most memorable one would be the protests. Like, I can't give you any specific protest, but it would just be doing protest shoots in general, demonstrations, because that's where you get a lot of strong human emotion coming out, and you've got a lot to capture, and there's a lot to think about. But I would probably go with, if you really want me to narrow it down, I'd probably go with the Brexit protests in general, like the whole topic of the Brexit protests from both sides of it, where there was a lot of heat, to put it that way.
Ryan, just to interject, in terms of being able, as a journalist in particular, how important is it to be able to tell both sides of the story? Can you share with us about that?
Oh, it's very important. You need to tell both sides of the story, because both sides of the story need a say. I mean, obviously, unless like one side's completely really badly skewed, then that's another kettle of fish. But where possible, you need to have both sides of the narrative. If not, you're going to get cases where certain news companies, which I shall not go into, only tell one side of the narrative, and the whole news cycle just gets skewed to one side.
Amazing. And then, aside from shooting in digital, you're also known as a photojournalist who's also able to shoot film while on assignment. How does it feel being able to pursue analog photography in the time of digital, especially in news where images are almost instantly needed to be transmitted?
I'd say it feels special, where you walk into a newsroom with, this is what I usually be using, my 67 Nikon F.
Love
You
it.
walk into a newsroom with this, and you just get looked at like, what's that doing here? That's not been in the newsroom for quite a long time. And to get the opportunity to actually still use it in a news gathering capacity, which is what it was designed for, you learn to appreciate what photojournalists did in the past, like say Vietnam, the 80s, where the F was heavily utilized.
Yeah.
And you get a certain respect for the photographers then.
And somehow it teleports you to that era, right? It gives you that sense of being able to do it like how they did it. And speaking of your photos, Ryan, let's now look at some.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Let's now.
Any chance I could just migrate there? I'm not on the phone. I'm on a video call at the moment.
Okay.
What time does it start? What time's the reservation at? Oh, yeah. Hey,
Sure.
Franz, give me a minute. I need to
Go ahead.
move tables.
Go ahead. And again, Ryan has been actually been working on as a photojournalist for a school paper, and he has been able to cover different stories there in England. And like what he said, it's really important to be able to show the two sides of the story, and it helps you tell the story in a more concise and a more it somehow
I
helps.
might need some help with my drink.
It somehow helps. It somehow helps you.
Yeah, that works.
Would you like me to do a quick song and dance?
Maybe we can get. Hold on. Go ahead. Well, Ryan is having or trying to transfer.
Thank you.
That's like news, so you have to be aware where you where you'll be able to pick up the story. Dave, you were saying?
Yeah. Been migrated to the other side of the bar.
Sure,
so
sorry, Ryan. That's fine.
I'm back.
That's fine. Anyway, yeah, Ryan was saying.
Is this the man's?
Pardon?
Is it the man's bathroom, I hope?
I hope. So yeah, for anyone who's not been to Britain, this is a pub.
Hold on. Let's try to show it on screen. Hold on. Let me just pin you into screen. Go ahead, Ryan. Maybe you can show them the pub.
Yeah, if no one's been to Britain before, this is a pub, and well, of course, the football's on.
Amazing. And Ryan, just going back, like what you said, you shoot with you're able to shoot analog at the time of digital. So how does it feel being able to do that and being given a chance to be able to pursue it, even if the news need to be sent almost instantly? Go ahead.
I'd actually say I feel quite lucky that I'm able to shoot film in a news gathering capacity. Like, I understand more than likely whilst I'm at work in future, I probably won't have that opportunity, but even whilst at university, to be able to do it, you get a certain respect for the job that you're going to. You learn to respect how journalists used to work. Like at the time, because I had my laptop failed me quite badly for about 6 months, I gave up and used a typewriter. So I turned up to university with a typewriter and my Nikon F. So it'd be a case of I've stepped into the wrong era, and you get taught. The lecturers are telling me, how it was back in the 80s, and you really do learn to respect the career and respect what they did as journalists and photojournalists.
It's somehow like a homage to that era.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
when I think they tell you stories that they don't tell anyone else, because what's the point in telling a digital photographer, this is about film, blah, blah, blah. And I think one of the key stories was, I'm pretty sure most of us will be familiar with the Pan Am crash, the Pan Am bombing back in the 80s, the Lockerbie incident. I met the photographer who was there. He got a call that a plane's gone down. He needs to move his rear and get there. And shot off 5 or 6 rolls of film. And here's the interesting thing: you don't see what you've shot. You just put all your film rolls in a bag, goes on a train down to London, and then you see what happens in the newspaper the next day. And to this day, he still hasn't actually seen his whole rolls of film, the 6 rolls of film that he shot of the Lockerbie crash, and he still has no idea where they are, what's happened to them, if they're even still in the Mirror's archive. I think it's the Mirror that he was shooting for, but yeah, see, end of the day, you don't know what you're going to get, and in a journalistic format, not knowing what you're going to get is quite jarring compared to now.
Yeah.
I shot it wrongly, I can reshoot it.
It's actually a different process. Now, speaking of process, Ryan, maybe you can share with us how you're able to do it. Especially like what you mentioned to me privately, you get to develop it immediately after the shoot. So maybe you can
Yeah.
share your process. How do you do it?
Much against my partner's will, I have set up a darkroom in the house. So I'll shoot in the daytime, and then I'll either rush home or rush to the university at the time because I had access to it, and go to the Fine Arts Center and do all my development there in about an hour or two, quickly scan it in and send it off by midnight.
Wow, it takes tremendous effort to be able to make that or get that to work.
But again, all the more because of the fact that I don't have easy access to a darkroom, which is what I would have had access to if I was at a newsroom back in the day. You really do gain a lot of respect for the photojournalists back then, because, like I said, you can't just check and reshoot, which is what a lot of us with digital cameras we all tend to do. Let's be honest, we'll check and we'll start chimping. I think that's the term, and start looking to see if my picture's bad and just reshoot on the spot. But with the film camera, you can't do that. And once the news has happened, it's happened. You can't just call the model and take it. You come back tomorrow and just like protest again.
Right. And speaking of photos, let's now dive into the photos that Ryan has sent us. Hold on, let me just pull them up on screen.
Full disclosure, not all of them are film.
Yeah. Again, for those who are watching, don't forget to follow Ryan on Instagram. It's at comcamphoto on Instagram, and his Twitter is at Ryan Lim Wei Hong on Twitter, and his website is ryanlimweihong.myportfolio.com. So Ryan, let's now dive into some of the photos you sent us. Please go ahead.
Okay, that's an interesting one. I was looking at it, and it's sort of poignant to say, if that's useful here, because that's the first time since the 1980s and 1990s that you'd seen a site like that. And it was interesting because I had to work within the railway boundaries. I couldn't step over the line, get too close, and there was still a mountain of other photographers on the platform. Just everyone's trying to get that shot. So full disclosure, that was digital. That was shot with my D700 with I think my 80-200 lens. But yeah, after that, it just spiraled into a whole day of riding the train to have it farewell its last hurrah, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, amazing. And then your next one, the protests. There, go ahead.
Ooh. I'm very sorry if anyone from mainland China is watching this, but yeah, that was really interesting. Where it's my first and my only chance so far where I've captured something of international news, and this is about I think 7 o'clock at night, and they were singing one of the Hong Kong protest songs, and the lights were up, and there was this great big yellow umbrella that I just kept getting drawn to the yellow umbrella, which, if you follow the news, it's a massive symbol of the Hong Kong protests.
Yeah.
So I was trying to balance the lights, and put it all into perspective to get this moment of we will fight for our freedom, we will stand with Hong Kong. We are not backing down.
Great. And then moving on to your next photo, maybe you can share a bit about this. Go ahead.
Ooh. I need to make sure no one's listening here. No one supports this guy.
I remember you posted
Matt
that.
Hancock, Secretary of Health health secretary of the United Kingdom. This is the day before the UK went into full lockdown. I was in London sorting out some of my passport things, and I only had my Nikon F. I didn't have any digital with me, so I was literally Nikon F 51.4 and nothing else. I turned up outside the government offices with everyone with the Canon's 1D X's and whatever's and all the D5, D6s, and you get me with a Nikon F, a plain black Nikon F with nothing there. And he took this picture. He turned up. We had about 30 seconds to take this picture before he ran away into the cabinet office. The guy behind him, if you see the journalist with the dictaphone, is asking him, "What are you going to do about this virus that's sweeping the world?" And I just had that half a second to capture this and show, I'm going to be outright, the cluelessness of his face.
Yeah.
And with no autofocus, no nothing. So it's just like, I'm just going to blind focus this and hope it turns out well, because I didn't have a proper light meter on me, to be honest. So that was just technical luck, for lack of any other term I can use.
Ryan, can I ask you about how the photographers or the journalists around you reacted when they saw you using a film camera? What were their reactions?
Franz, are we allowed to curse here?
Sorry?
Or are we allowed to curse on this podcast?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
What in the heck is that? What? And they just sort of looked at me and gave me this weird, "Are you a journalist?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm a journalist. Here's my journalist ID. I'm a proper journalist." And then they're like, "Is that a..." "Yes, it is." "How old is it?" "What? What is that?" No motor drive, no autofocus, no meter, and it's there outside the government office on possibly one of the biggest news stories of the year, and I'm there with a Nikon F.
Great story. And again, moving on to your next photo. I love this one. Hold on. Let me just pull it up on screen. Your next one. Go ahead.
I believe, if I'm not wrong, that's at the Newcastle, either Newcastle or London. I can't quite remember. One of the pro-Hong Kong protests again. Like, I built up quite a relationship with the pro-Hong Kong people in the UK, so I was routinely covering their stuff in the Northeast and London. It was interesting because on one hand, in Hong Kong, most of the pictures, if you're familiar, will be of the police beating the protesters, shooting them, riot gas, the whole likes of that. And over here in London, you get a peaceful protest and you get the Metropolitan Police coming in and they're like, "Hey, how are you? Are you all right?
They're
Is
sympathetic.
everything okay?" And actually protecting the protesters, which is interesting to see. And you don't usually get yellow helmets and police in a happy relationship together.
Yeah, exactly. Amazing. That's different. And
it's not one of the better photos, but it's more the more poignant, more interesting photos.
Great. And finally, your last photo, Ryan. Go ahead.
Okay, now this is just interesting. This is outright interesting. I think I was using an F100, and that's Portra 800 film there, if I'm not wrong. And spent the whole day. We were out chasing DC-3s. This was, I think, to celebrate the D-Day anniversary. They had I'm not even sure how many DC-3s they had flown over the Atlantic from America, and they had these all World War II planes that just landed after a massive flight from Iceland, trekking across the Atlantic as they would have done back in the war. And we was in the middle, so we had a day shoot and a night shoot. And the night shoot, on digital, the night shoot's easy, it's simple to do, but on film, you sort of need to trust the meter and trust the meter, pray for the best. And because it's at night, I'm going to be honest, film at night, I have got not much experience in that. So I had to test shoot on the digital and then look to see which part of the aircraft do I focus my meter on and what's the best settings to use. And overall, of the whole night's pictures, this turned out so beautifully. You had the balance of the metal, the blue nose, and the whites turned out perfectly.
Amazing. And then, Ryan, we just have one question for you from Sir Alan Mendez, again from San Francisco. He's asking, "Hi, Ryan. Love your images. 2 questions for you. Number 1, what would be your dream assignment? And then number 2, can you tell us about your state of mind when shooting?"
Okay, to answer your number 1 question, I just need to hope my partner's not watching this stream. From the time I started university, I've been targeting to try and get into conflict photography. I was a military photographer before this, and I was really inspired by Nick Ut's work in Vietnam. And after that, it was like the Nikon F. I want to shoot conflict. I want to go to Iraq, Afghanistan, Crimea, and all that. And that would definitely be my dream assignment. I don't think my lecturers forgiven me from the day I asked for a risk assessment form asking, "Hi, Alistair, can I have a risk assessment form?" Why? Work placement. Where? Crimea. Russia's just invaded. And no, I don't think he's forgiven me since that. And second question, Franz, could you get the second question again?
The second question is, can you tell us about your state of mind when shooting?
State of mind? It's weird. I just go into this sort of a hyper-focus mode where I just walk into a scene, try and blend in, and my mind's just trying to blend in with everyone else, don't attract attention to myself, and then looking for everything that I can capture, all the key moments to capture.
Amazing. And then, Ryan, I have a surprise for you. Cheers. Can you see my camera, Ryan?
Oh, God.
Cheers. Anyway, moving on to your...
Funny story, when I went into the university lecturer's office, he had this book on photojournalism, and on the cover was a Nikon F.
You know what? That's one of the reasons why I also love the Nikon F, because of Full Metal Jacket. Have you seen the movie?
Yeah, when I was in the army, before I left the army, one of my sergeants gave me this little badge of Joker from Full Metal Jacket.
Nice.
Rifle in one hand, Nikon F in the other, and I was like,
amazing.
At the time, I only had an FE. I was like, I need a Nikon F now. I want an F.
And Ryan, speaking of the Nikon F, can you tell about your camera?
Yeah, that's the camera I got stuck in London with. That camera is currently out of use pending cleaning and servicing, but I found it in the camera store and it's like, I need to get this. I'm going to probably be eating biscuits for the rest of the month, but I need to get this. Like, it's a black Nikon F.
Yes, it's really
a little
rare.
bit dinged. It's a bit battered, but hey ho, it works and it does its job.
Amazing.
And it was my first camera without a meter, so that was interesting in itself to learn to shoot without a meter. And it really forced me into learning the Sunny 16 rule properly, which I actually got told off for not knowing it correctly.
And it has a Kogaku.
Without a meter, you really your photography, you start here and just goes all the way up in about 2 months.
Amazing. And I can see it has a Kogaku lens on it.
Yes.
Okay. And
I think that came with a Nikon mat that's now been sold off. I think I traded the Nikon mat in for the Nikon F, if I'm honest.
Nice. And then moving on to your other behind the scenes, maybe you can talk about this. Go ahead.
I think that was shot on either the F100. I think that was another F100 picture. That was the general election last year. So that was my first time actually shooting film at a political event. So it was indoors. This was, I think...
Amazing. somehow
midnight, I think, and they were announcing the results of which MP won which constituency.
Amazing. And your final behind the scenes, maybe you can talk about your most memorable experience in terms of capturing. Go ahead.
A most memorable experience in terms of capturing something. I'm gonna fall back on I didn't send these pictures out, and these pictures I've not actually released them. I think it was the night when I came back from one of the protests down in London, and I got stuck in Newcastle on St. Patrick's Day at night at 12:30 at night, and I had to stay there until like the next train back to Sunderland. And St. Patrick's night, it was snowing. I think the temperatures were 1-2 degrees.
Wow.
And all the pubs are on this massive slope. At the time, there was no steps there. Now there are steps there. If you ever look at it, I think it's called the Big Market in Newcastle. And I was sit there capturing it as I would, and you just get people sliding down. It's absolutely wasted.
Amazing. Great story. And
yeah,
Ryan,
drunken and ice don't go very well together.
Could imagine. Ryan, finally, for those who'd like to pursue film photography in street, can you share with us your top 3 tips for them?
Top 3 tips. I would say, first thing first, it depends on. I would get a camera with a meter that works, and stick some ASA ISO 400 film in there and just get out. And you need to trust yourself, because a lot of the film photographers I saw at university, where they've just been handed a film camera, they're like, oh my god, what is this? They don't trust themselves and they get really scared of the camera. So first tip, trust yourself. Second tip, get 400 or 800 film where you can't go wrong. And third tip, I'd say you need to be comfortable with the camera you use. Like, I've got a Zenit EM in my bag here, but I don't use it because my last one shredded my film. So if you pass it to me, I'm not going to trust it. But if you pass me any of my Nikons, I will trust those. So you need to have a relationship with your camera to trust it and know that it's going to work and it's not going to fail.
Amazing. And on that note, thank you, Ryan. Please stay. We'll say goodbye together, and we'll end with the final question. Again, we'd like to thank Ryan and David, who has been with us tonight. Let's now get our final guest. Hold on. And last, hold on. There, and we're back. And last but definitely not least, we have Albert Rañada from the Philippines, who is a product photographer as well as an urban landscape photographer. He has been into photography for more than 7 years now and loves what he does because he gets to show how beautiful our surroundings are. He says that he loves street photography mainly because it is a genre that forces him to be creative by finding a unique vantage point to capture a good image. Street photography allows him to hone composition skills, an essential element in photography. Without further ado, let me get to you, Albert Rañada. Hi, Albert. Welcome back. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, guys. For the Filipinos watching, kape-kape muna.
Yeah. He says, let's try to grab some coffee. Anyway, Albert, just to dive into it, your first question. You're regarded as one of the best photographers in Photo Nation that takes good urban landscapes. Can you share with us what attracted you to urban landscapes? Go ahead.
Well, what attracted me to urban landscape are the bright or vibrant colors produced by the cars and street lights. I never thought that night is more vibrant than day. I started capturing light trails coming from cars, then I've included buildings and bridges and other subjects to make the scene more interesting. By the way, that's why my Instagram name is the Fuji Light Painter, because I'm light paint using my Fujifilm camera.
Amazing. And since you mentioned nightscapes, you also take good nightscapes and light trails. What's the most challenging thing about it and why?
I see. Okay, actually, so far the challenging thing in taking light trails or nightscapes in an urban scenario is when you get prohibited by street marshals
Yeah.
in taking photos in the streets. Of course, you have to follow the street protocols. Now, what I do in this type of scenarios is I have to find another location, or if I badly want that scene or view, um, I move few distance away and grab a telephoto lens. Or I look for a balcony, for mall balconies, or set up my gears in a bridge or an overpass bridge. You really have to be creative. As mentioned a while ago, creativity has no limits. So far, that's one of the most difficult thing I encounter. When the street marshals prohibit you from taking photos of in a certain area, you really have to look for another location or um, do something. As
Be
long as you're
creative.
not hurting someone, as long as it is creative, do it.
Very well said from Albert. And there you have it. You have to be mindful of those limitations, and you need to be able to find ways on how to produce it, even if you're limited. And Albert, for those who are new and want to try this, can you share with us some of the equipment or tools that you use to shoot streets at night? Maybe you can share with us the different tools that you use.
A good question. In capturing light trails, at night, you don't need too much of equipment. The lighter your gears are, the better. So just bring a decent or good tripod with you that can secure your camera properly. Better have a clamp as well. If you will be shooting in rooftops or beach or anywhere with railings, um, clamp is a better option than tripod. If that's the first, second, if you don't have a built-in timer in your camera, better grab a shutter remote. Me, actually, I don't usually use this shutter button in my camera if I'm taking landscape photos. So to avoid camera shake, so either I use a timer or use my shutter remote. Lastly, before heading out, make sure to bring the right lens or gears with you. I always bring my Trinity lenses. Those Trinity lenses are wide, mid-range, and telephoto lenses. But as mentioned a while ago, you have to pack light, especially if you're a street photographer.
Yeah.
So decide what to bring um, depending on what you will shoot and where you will shoot.
Amazingly put. Albert, I just have one question. If you have, or if you're asked what your most favorite lens is, what would it be and why?
Landscape. In landscape, usually landscape photographers use wide lens. So because in landscape you have to capture more of the scene. Of course, you're taking landscape. So in order for you to get the entire scenario, you have to get a wide lens. So that's the lens I usually use.
Amazing. And in terms of accessories, do you also use filters?
Yes, yes, yeah. I at night no, but if I'm capturing sunrise or sunset scenes, better for you to use an ND filter. There are a lot of quality filters out there. If at night, sometimes I use clear night filter. But ND filters, of course, it's already dark, so you don't have to darken the scene already. If sunset or sunrise only, or in daytime.
Albert, another question. In terms
Yes.
of being there out in the street, what if, for example, you forgot your tripod? What do you do?
Nice question. Well, that's really challenging.
Mm-mm.
So, buy a tripod. Just joking. No, look for a flat surface.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
So look for a flat surface so you can lay down your camera there,
Mm-mm.
but make sure that it's safe.
Mm-mm.
It might be risky, so safety first.
Mm-mm.
Even though the scene is so good, safety first.
Very well put. And then lastly, Albert, what if you forgot your cable release? I believe you can do the
Yes.
timer, right? You can do the
Yes.
timer.
If you forgot your shutter remote or
Mm-mm.
cable release, you can use timer. But some cameras doesn't have
Timer.
don't have built-in timer, so you can press the shutter button. But usually I prevent using the shutter button if because in landscape you use long exposure.
Yeah.
Your shutter is very low, so you should avoid your camera from shaking. So for you to prevent so, use shutter or timer. But
Mm-mm.
if you don't have those two, then your only option is to press the shutter for a long time or press the shutter button. So yeah.
Amazingly put by Albert. Speaking of photos, let's now dive into some of the photos that Albert has sent us. Really good photos that Albert has shared with us. Again, if you haven't yet, do check out the Instagram accounts of Albert. His first Instagram account is at the Fuji Light Painter, and his other Instagram account is at Albert Rañada Product Portfolio, and his Facebook is facebook.com/albert.raniada. And let's begin with the first one. Albert, go ahead, please.
Oh, nice. Okay, this was taken near Mall of Asia. Actually, this scene is really dark.
Mm-mm.
Dark. So there are street lights, few street lights that night.
Mm-mm.
So there, as you can see, there are boats or what we call bangka in Filipino
Mm-mm.
that were used by the people living under the bridge.
Mm-mm.
So they use this as mode of transportation. And that building there is a condominium.
Mm-mm.
So I was, after my duty
Mm-mm.
in Mall of Asia,
Mm-mm.
I went there. And I get attracted because of the composition. Foreground, boats, background, buildings. Even the skies are a bit plain, but the subjects are really interesting. So I captured this for 1 minute, and this is a composite photo, by the way.
Amazing. And you can see the contrast of the traditional, the boats, contrasting the new buildings on the scene. And your next one, Albert, we all love this. When I first saw this, I was in shock. Maybe you can share a bit about this. Go ahead.
Okay, this photo is really interesting. I have my photography buddy, Minor Plaza, special mention, when we took this scene. This photo was taken around 6 p.m. and it's really hard because there are only few cars that pass
Yeah.
by that time. This was taken during pandemic, so there are only few cars, and this was taken during sunset time. So this is a composite photo composed of 3 to 4 photos, so I can get the right amount of traffic trails that I want.
Ah.
Then after this photo was taken, we got asked by the marshal.
The MAPSA.
Yes, the street marshal to move out.
Mm-mm.
It's prohibited taking from this certain area. This photo was taken in Ayala North Exchange, somewhere in the Ayala North
In
Exchange.
Makati. That's actually
Yes,
near.
Makati.
That's actually near our place.
Oh,
Here.
really? Nice.
Yes.
Well,
And
one of the busiest
It
streets
is, yeah.
in Makati.
Mm-mm.
But then after, so we moved out, and I knew that time that okay, I wasn't able to capture a good photo. That's it. Then
Amazing.
once I got home, I reviewed the photos. Then I get amazed because if I combine the three photos that I captured, it will look interesting. So
Mm-mm, mm-mm,
I've edited it. Then I'm not expecting that I will get this
mm-mm.
photo.
Amazing. And we actually have a question for you, Albert. It's
Yes.
from Hanilet de Asis. She says, "Hi Albert, number one fan here. Question: What are your thoughts and feelings about shooting individually versus shooting with a friend or small group of friends when out on the streets?"
Okay. Well, shooting with the photography body is really cool. So you have time to talk something while capturing long exposure
Mm-mm, mm-mm,
photos.
mm-mm.
Taking photo or taking a photo of a scene with a large group is really challenging. So in photo walks, if you're capturing landscape scene, you are all capturing the same scene,
Yeah.
right? So if you are 5 or 10 photographers, you are capturing the same scene. So the output will all be the same,
The
right?
same, yeah.
So the challenging part there is look for a different spot, a creative one or a unique one. So you'll come up with a different output. So taking photo or photo walk with the group is challenging. It pushes you to be creative. Second, the versus the solo.
Mm-mm,
Well, capturing scenes by solo or all by myself is
mm-mm.
pretty cool, but taking photos with a group is cooler.
Mm. Amazing. And then let's now move on to your other photos. Hold on, let me just pull them back. Your next one. Wow, I love this. Go ahead.
Oh yes. Again, the busiest streets in the metro
Mm-mm.
is the city with the busiest streets in the metro is Makati.
Yeah,
So
here.
again, this photo was taken in Makati near Ayala Triangle. It was about to rain that time,
Mm-mm.
and my objective there is to capture two photos,
Mm.
composite photo, because I have to capture the two ways where the cars were moving, so the
Yeah.
left side and the right side.
Mm-mm.
So I blended two photos in one image.
Mm-mm.
It's and I was able to capture the good skies and light rails. I was in the middle of a traffic light, so it's
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
risky, and I know anytime a marshal will approach me
Yeah,
again.
that's very.
But
Mm-mm.
I'm not influencing you guys to
Mm-mm.
shoot in the middle of street. Okay, as
Mm-mm.
long as you are safe and as long as you're not
Mm-mm.
hurting someone,
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
and if it's creative for you, push it.
Do it.
Yeah.
Great. Very, very well put. And then your next one. Go ahead. Wow.
Oh,
Love
okay.
the
This photo was
colors.
taken in Marikina.
Mm-mm.
This was my first time to visit Marikina City, since I'm from the south. So
Mm-mm.
it's
Mm-mm.
really far away. It's 2 to 3 hour drive from
Yeah.
Laguna, which is a province in the
The
Philippines.
Philippines. Yeah.
So actually, it's not a province anymore.
Mm-mm.
So I'm not familiar with the area of Marikina, but I visited Marikina Bridge since it's one of the tourist attractions
Yeah.
in Marikina, and it took me an hour to look for a good spot.
Mm-mm.
So I went down the river, literally the river.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
So there are few rocks there and I stood there and captured this scene. This photo was taken at 5 or 6 p.m.
Amazing. And
Actually, it's before sunset.
mm-mm. We love the reflections. It adds a bit
Yes,
of
the
drama
reflection.
to the story. Great. And then finally, your last one. Go ahead.
Yes. By the way, guys,
Mm.
for the sunset shots I've taken in my images, I used a filter there.
Ah, so what
Yes.
filter?
For the night photo, sometimes I use clear night filter to
Mm.
lessen the night pollution in the skies.
Ooh, great. And then hold on, let me just pull back the photos.
Yes.
Your last one. Go
So
ahead. Go ahead.
okay, yes, that one. If you actually, I posted a story about this
Mm.
scene behind the scene. This shot was really difficult for me because it's sick. I have there's a wall
Mm.
or barriers, and my
Mm.
tripod is only 4 feet long,
Mm.
but the wall is about 6 feet.
Mm.
So what I did is I put my tripod on a post, a light post, and
Mm.
hold my tripod there. Then I use a
Ooh.
telephoto lens. This photo was taken with a telephoto lens, and I never thought that I would capture this type of scene with trees and the branch of the trees, and that's Makati at sunset. Really
Amazing.
interesting. What I love in taking
Mm.
cityscape photography rather, is that sometimes you wouldn't expect that the outcome would be that beautiful.
Mm.
Yes, more beautiful than the naked eye.
Mm. Amazing. And I see I see David looking at. So David, now you have an idea what the Philippines looks like.
Yes.
You have an idea. Anyway, Albert, let's now go to your behind the scenes. Maybe you can talk about your camera.
Yes,
Go ahead.
okay. My camera is Fujifilm X-T2, not the latest, but
Mm.
not the oldest as
Mm.
well.
Mm.
In gears, I rather in camera specifically, I rather buy an average camera and invest on lenses.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
So that's a piece of advice that I got from a friend, and
Okay. Albert is cracking up a
years
bit.
now, and it's a good advice.
Go ahead.
Average camera and invest on quality lenses.
Amazing.
But
And
if
we
you have a buying power
mm.
to buy the latest models, go ahead.
Mm.
But for me, lenses first before camera body. Then you
Great.
can upgrade
Mm.
to a higher
Mm.
body.
Great advice. And we actually love how your camera looks. Maybe you can share a bit of what those are. What are those wood on your camera?
Yes, that's a small rig, L bracket.
Mm-hmm.
You can check small rig. They have different
Wow.
interesting rigs out there that you can use for videography and photography. The wood shutter button and wood hat shoe are from Artisan Obscura.
Mm.
Yeah,
I have one of their
really
straps. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
interesting designs. You can check their
Yeah.
Instagram. Really interesting. You can get a shutter button with engraved engraved
Amazing.
design, and you can get a hot shoe with a text on it, with a quotable quotes on it. You
Amazing.
can
And
check. Actually, me, I'm really fond of buying. If I already collected the lenses and camera body, I've already upgraded. The last option or the last thing I always do is to buy accessories. So I would get interesting or beautiful camera. So I bought a small rig with design. It's really expensive, but the quality is really great. Same with the shutter button and hat shoe.
amazing. And we see how you take good care of your camera,
Yeah.
and that's really very important.
Yes.
Again, maybe you can share with us your behind the scenes. Go ahead.
Yes, actually, yes. Behind the scenes, the first photo on the left is a group photo of Photowalk PH. By the way,
Mm.
I'm an admin of Photo PH.
Ah.
So we organize photo walks
Yes.
almost every 2 months back then, but because of pandemic, it was put on hold. But hopefully soon after this pandemic, we can organize photo walks as well. Photo walks with different genres: landscape,
Mm-mm.
portrait,
Mm-mm.
um, yeah, landscape, portrait, and street photography.
Mm-mm.
Then the second photo, sorry,
Yes, sir.
the
Yes.
previous slide.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So yeah, the second photo on the right is our workshop for a company. I forgot the
Mm.
company name, but
Mm.
these people, the HR organized a photography workshop for their employees. It went well. Actually, the participants comes from different departments and they want to learn the basics of photography. So
Amazing.
I taught them how the exposure triangle works and other photography what do you call this, other
Concepts.
photography topics.
Amazing. And we're actually friends with with Photowalk PH.
Yes,
I'm friends with Ellis and all the
yes.
other guys. You know what? Maybe we should do a photo walk
Yes.
with the whole team. Again, you're next. A couple of photos. Go ahead.
So again, photo walks from Photo Walk PH, street, landscape. We went to different locations in within Metro Manila
Mm,
only.
mm.
So we went to BGC,
Yeah.
Binondo, in Pasay, capturing street portrait and landscape photography. And we always gather around 15, at least 15 to 30 participants every photo walk. There are photo walks that are free and that were free that time, and it's really interesting because it's the photographers or the participants rather are mixed. There are hobbyists, there
Yeah.
are new timers, there are veterans, and there are
Professionals.
veterans that uses film camera different, very diverse.
Amazing. And then lastly, your question is, can you share with us your top 3 tips for shooting at night or light trails? Go ahead.
Okay, actually, this question is asked uh, more often. So, okay, 3 tips, but I might go for four.
Go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Okay, yeah, for the first one, okay, let's talk about gears. Since many photographers buy gears, but at the end of the day or after a few months, they wasn't able to use those gears. So as mentioned a while ago, invest in leverage body and invest on quality lenses. Okay, specifically, this question was about shooting at night. So, okay, 3 tips. First, invest on a quality tripod. Never settle with the plastic ones because it's risky to use. We call it the kit tripod. When you buy a camera it comes with a free tripod. It's usually made of plastic. So I would rather not use it even it's for free because imagine you'll buy a camera, then you'll put it. You bought a camera with which is expensive, for example, and you'll put it on a plastic tripod,
Mm-mm.
and it might fall off because the camera is heavy and
Yeah.
your tripod is made of plastic.
Mm-mm.
So invest in a quality tripods. It might be pricey, I know, because of its build quality since it's made of either aluminum or carbon fiber, but that's okay. If it will secure your camera properly and if you will use it for the long run, better grab it. Okay.
Mm-mm.
So aside from investing lenses, better invest on a quality tripod. Second is invest time in practicing your editing skills or
Mm-mm.
how
Mm-mm.
you edit your photos. So I use Photoshop for photo manipulation and Lightroom or Luminar for color grading. Just play with those softwares, watch
Mm.
tutorials, um,
Mm-mm.
and don't be shy to ask someone how
Yeah.
they capture or edit it. So don't be shy. Ask away.
Mm-mm.
So lastly, not last, but third one,
Go ahead.
be patient and be observant.
Mm-mm.
Actually, this is applicable to any photography genres that I know. So be patient in taking photos because you won't get your ideal or dream shot on your first try.
Mm-mm.
That's okay. Learn from it. It's okay if you got home with you weren't able to capture a good photo. It's okay. Learn from it and they call this be patient since you won't be able to capture it on your first time and try until
Succeed.
you're able to fulfill your dream shot.
Yeah.
Okay, then be observant because you should observe what's going on the street. So specifically, if you're shooting light rails or cityscape
Mm-mm.
on a street, you have to observe the movement of cars, people, and um, people, and you should check the traffic light always if
Yeah.
it's on stop or if it's on green.
Mm-mm.
So that time, if you're observing those, you will be able to capture a good light trails,
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
a good amount of light rays. So it's important for you to know where and when the cars will pop out for you to have or capture good light rails. And it's important to be aware of your timing. So
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
timing uh, is a virtue.
Mm-mm.
So okay.
Amazing.
Then the lastly,
Mm-mm.
um, piece of advice:
Mm-mm.
your first idea is your best idea.
Wow.
That's it.
Really good advice from Albert. Albert, we have a few questions for you. One is
Yes.
from Hanilet again. Her question is another question for Albert. Since you always post your photos on Instagram and Facebook, how has social media played a role in your photography?
Okay, I have to admit, okay, I'll be open. Before, if I'm receiving a lot of likes or
Mm, mm,
hearts, it's really satisfying.
mm, mm,
But then at some point, I realized that in photography, uh, I'm taking pictures because I want to express not myself,
mm,
not to
mm,
impress someone. And a friend told me to try film photography because when I entered the photography world, I'm using digital. So a friend told me use film and tell me what you will feel. Well, it's really satisfying because in film,
mm,
actually Ryan Lim and I think David Banta uses
mm,
film and you of
mm.
course user. So in film you won't be able to see the what you call this the
The
picture
prop.
you took, right?
Mm, mm,
So it's a leap of faith.
mm,
So um, I was able to express myself,
mm,
and I don't mind what other people will think about that photo.
mm, mm,
Even it's blurry, even it's too dark.
mm,
But the moment I captured that photo, there was this unexplainable but satisfying feeling.
mm,
So that's photography.
mm, mm,
It's always keep in mind that you are taking photos for yourself
mm,
for because it's how you express it
mm.
and it's how you feel it, not to make other people be impressed about
Yeah.
your works. Well, it's good factor if you made other people if you are making other people to get this attracting or
Inspired.
may yes that
Mm,
pero but the first option is the feeling.
mm,
Yes.
mm. in the process. We have
Yes.
one last question for you, Albert, from Sir Alan Mendez again from San Francisco. His question is: I'm a fan of your urban night photography. Two questions for you: how would you describe your style as a photographer? And number two, how much of shooting is planned, and how much is spontaneous? Maybe
Okay.
we can begin with the
Those.
first one. Go ahead.
Actually, sorry. What's the first one
The
again? I'm
first
really sorry. I'm
yeah,
lost.
the first one is how do you describe your style as a
Ah,
photographer?
okay. My style. Well, actually, it's really hard for me to describe my style because it's like describing myself.
Mm-mm.
It's better for other people to describe it than myself because they are the ones um, who can see my works or who can fully explain my works. But for me, huh,
Maybe we can
tough
rephrase.
question. Well,
Maybe Albert. Maybe we can rephrase the question of what do you look for in the type of photography that you do. What do you look for? Is it colors? Is it the angles?
okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, what I'm looking for in cityscape photography are the colors.
Mm-mm.
Colors. Then second is light or where the shadows are placed.
Mm-mm.
So, as mentioned a while ago, um, the reason why I'm attracted to urban landscape photography is because of the color. So I think when I'm capturing photos or cityscape photos, you will notice that it's really vibrant.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
And I really want that type of shot. And I think that one of the things that set me apart with other photographers, it's really vibrant. But actually, I'm not the only one. There are a lot of photographers that make or that capture photos,
Mm-mm.
cityscape photos, really vibrant. So I think, hello,
Go
sorry,
ahead. Go ahead. Go
I'm
ahead.
my
We know. We know.
yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. Do your thing. Again, for those who are watching, just to repeat what Albert has been saying, some of his tips are about for shooting street photography. Is number one, invest on a good quality tripod. Number two is invest in your editing skills, and number three is learn from your experiences and be observant. And Albert also said your first idea is always your best idea. And with that, we're just waiting for Albert to come back. Yeah. So for those who are watching, please stay. We'll bring back all our guests in a bit. And again, we were talking about the different things that Albert has been able to experience, and one of the things he actually loves looking for is actually colors and a different way of capturing it in terms of the perspective of what you see on the street. And um, one of the things that you also always need to be mindful of is being able to be attentive in terms of your surroundings. It's also very important to be able to know if you're in danger in terms of the since you shoot on the streets. It's also a good idea to be able to know if you're in danger or not. And I see Albert now. Hold on, I believe he's just restarting his video. So yeah, and again, be mindful of the marshals because that's one of the things here in the Philippines. The security is a bit strict. Even if you go or enter in different malls, you need to pass by the security. And if they see if you see a camera with you, you get immediately be shooed away when you bring out your camera. Albert, is your video okay? Albert, can you hear us? Albert, are you there?
Can you hear me?
I
Okay,
think your
maybe I'll
videos.
switch to the laptop again.
Okay, I think
Okay.
there you go.
Okay. Well,
Yes, go ahead, please, Albert.
I've changed.
Mm. I believe Albert just changed his video, but yeah, He was actually wrapping up
Yes.
in terms of. Go ahead, Albert. Maybe you can wrap up with your tips. Go ahead. Sorry. The question is, how much of your shooting is planned and how much is spontaneous?
Plan. I
Mm-mm.
usually
Okay, I
that
think.
area days
Mm-mm.
before I capture the scene. Just it's like I'm gathering information if photos is allowed in the area and if this vantage point is good.
Mm-mm.
So
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Yeah, I believe Albert is breaking up. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
you really have to plan everything. Usually, if they're looking for shoot,
Okay,
if
so we'll try to get Albert back.
if
I think
you
it's probably because of the internet. Maybe we can get Albert back. Hold on. Anyway, maybe we can talk about that again when we bring back our guests. And there. Speaking of guests, let's try to bring back our guests while we're waiting for Albert. Again, we have Dave or David Banta and Ryan Lim with us again back here. Um, Again, for those who are watching, we're actually opening up our hotline. Again, you can call us at 63921 408 8898, or you just need to call us on Viber. And I believe we actually have a call with us tonight. Hello, can you hear us?
Hello.
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, so we have Carl Corpus, who's at the southern tip of the Philippines. Carl, can you ask your question? Go ahead.
Um, my question is, when photographing a person during of your street photography session, did you experience being confronted by the person because you took a photo of them?
So that's an interesting question. Maybe we can ask that from Dave or David Banta. David, he's asking, have you been ever confronted by a person that you're taking photos of?
Um, two situations come to mind. Uh, the first was a woman who was walking her dog, and the dog was dressed in winter garb. It was in the snow. I saw her coming. She came past me. I photographed. She turned around and came back and said, "Did you photograph me?" And I said, "Yes, I did." And she asked me not to use the photo. And I really am a defender of photography rights in the United States because we have the freedom to photograph whoever on a public street. So I basically, as politely as possible, told her that I was going to be using it, or maybe not, but that it was mine to use. And it depends on the situation. If I'm shooting a shot that is essentially exploiting somebody, homeless comes to mind. If they ask me that, then I would have a different response. The other time was on a bus trip. I was photographing kids in a bus depot, and one of the parents went to security instead of talking to me and told them that I was photographing their kids. And security got involved and came up, and they actually called the police. I ended up being publicly humiliated by them confronting me and saying I had to stop, and I was fine. But they actually threatened to have me miss my bus. I was protesting about the fact that I could photograph. And next time I'd probably say, okay, I think if I showed people what I'm shooting, that would be the best way to get out of that situation. Because the shots are usually some kind of art, harmless.
Amazing. And then maybe we can ask that with Ryan. Ryan, have you been ever confronted by a person who doesn't want to be taken? A photo taken of them.
Ooh, don't stop me on that. Yes, yes.
Go ahead.
As a photojournalist, that's a big, huge thing. Mine, it was okay. Remember how I told you about sometimes I'll shoot the nights out, say like the party nights, say St. Patrick's, Christmas, Halloween, that sort of nonsense. There was one night we had this copper who was manhandling, and I mean manhandling, an arrest, pinning the guy, whacking the guy, basically, sort of a thing. I got a picture. I'm on public property, and then the copper starts threatening me with arrest. I'm like, no, I'm not just some yop with a camera. I'm a legitimate journal, and I'm shooting for the paper. So you can take your stick up the end. And then after that, he started getting the nightclubs to use their bouncers to threaten me, saying I'm on their land, but it's council land, so it's public land. There's nothing they can do. That was one incident. And when it comes to police, you really just need to know your media law, your rights as a photographer. With that, where can you shoot? If say you're on council property, private property, you don't have the same freedoms. But if you're on a public street, you have the freedom to shoot whatever you want.
Exactly.
The other one we had was there was a slavery incident down in Gateshead nearby. I was on assignment with the paper again, and we were out to take pictures of evidence of slavery and human trafficking. And obviously their security did not like that. And again, they threatened to call the police, yada, yada, yada. And eventually one guy decided it's a good idea to grab my lens and try and whack me with my camera.
Wow. That's crazy.
Which the other photographer who was there got the whole thing on video. So, well, obviously it didn't progress anywhere from there because they got him assaulting a journal. So that was the end of the discussion altogether.
That's crazy.
We got what we needed.
We have Albert.
And the guy presumably got told off. But yeah, those are the two more interesting ones that we had. Obviously, there's all those that David experienced where somebody says, "Oh, don't take a picture of me in the street." But again, like David said, you need to know your media. You need to know your law. You're on a public street, as long as
and you're right.
What you're doing, it doesn't sort of portray them in an untoward manner. There's nothing they can do about it. But then again, there's also a thing where you need to remember, say, if any journalists are listening, if you're outside a court, you need to know the precincts of the court. And if you're on a street, you can't shoot into people's windows. I can't just say, I'm on a public street, but there's something going on inside that house that looks photographically interesting. I still can't shoot that. I can only shoot on the street, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And I totally agree. And maybe we can hear with Albert, who's back with us. Albert, have you since you mentioned earlier that you've been held back by the marshals when you take pictures? You've been held back by the marshals when you take pictures. Maybe you can share a bit of your experience being held back into pursuing your photographic career. And especially here, maybe you can also like talk about how strict it is here in the Philippines. Go ahead.
Yes, actually, it's really strict here. I'm not sure if in other countries, but of course, as a citizen, you have to obey the strict protocols. There's nothing nothing you can do obey, of course. It's for your own good as well. The reason there are certain protocols implemented on the streets. Okay, if a marshal approach you, just apologize and thank him for informing you. Then move out. Look for another
Spot. Another spot. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
when AV create this type of
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Yeah, I think Albert is.
another spot or
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
yeah.
Okay, great. And Albert, just before we got cut off, the hanging question about the one asked by Sir Alan and Des, how much of your shooting is planned and how much is spontaneous? Maybe you can share a bit of your answer. Go ahead.
Um, um, you really have to plan it out. Actually, I think I have already answered this,
Mm-mm.
but
Mm-mm.
again, you have to. So in order for you, if you are really if you really want to get a good image, everything is planned out. In taking photos of landscape. So check what gears you have to bring with you, and it's better if you ask the photographers who already went there,
Mm-mm.
so and ask them if it's a good area for photo shoots, and if it is still allowed, or
Mm-mm.
if it
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
are stricter protocols in that area. So
Yeah, I think.
from
Mm, yeah.
gears and time.
Mm. Okay, and I think yeah, Albert was explaining how. Hold on, let me. Yeah, he was explaining how you need to be aware of the certain things that you need to also gather in terms of information when you go out on the street. And finally, let's bring back all our guests with the final question: why should people do or at least try street photography? And what's with street photography that they need to experience? Maybe we can begin with Ryan. Ryan, go ahead. Unmute.
I'd say I think the one thing you need to experience when doing street photography is like surprisingly falling back onto what we last talked about
Mm-mm, mm-mm,
with David and myself.
mm-mm,
It's quite nasty, but you need to experience getting pushed back
mm-mm, mm-mm,
because then it also challenges you. How close do you dare to go to someone? Do you like say remember that Japanese photographer a couple of years ago who literally run up to people and stick the camera smack in their
yeah.
face, or the other types where you zoom in on a telephoto lens, or the where you just average, you just shoot with a 50 mil.
Mm-mm, mm-mm,
You need to get the pushback from people so you know what's your limits. How do you shoot tastefully?
mm-mm, mm-mm. Amazing. And maybe we can hear from Albert, who's back, and then maybe we can end with David. Albert, your final thoughts, and hold on. There, your final thoughts, and why should people try or at least do or need to? What are the things in street photography they need to experience? Go ahead, Albert. Are you there? Can you hear us?
Can you please? I have a low internet connection,
Okay,
so it's
maybe you can,
choppy.
Albert. Maybe you can turn off your video,
Yes.
and then we can do audio. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead,
I'm
please.
here.
Yeah, it's clear. Go ahead.
Can you please repeat the question again?
The final question is, why should people do or at least try street photography, and what's in street photography that they need to experience?
Okay. Well, I encourage photographers, if you're taking portraits or events, you should try uh, street photography because it allows you to take photos of our surroundings, and you will see how beautiful our surroundings are. Most of us are busy using our phones while strolling in streets or parks, and we didn't know that even in cities surrounded by concrete buildings or huge glass windows or cars, there are hidden sides. So we just have to look making creative perspective. So that's why first you should
Yeah, I think that's one of the problems we've been having earlier. The internet. I can see Dave. Go ahead, Albert. Mm-mm. Okay. Yeah.
and well second is what I love in this or in capturing
Mm-mm.
and landscape photography is that, as mentioned a while ago, it helps me to be creative if you're in a group or if Marshall picks you in that certain area. It pushes me to be creative in a way that
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
to add a different spot or vantage point
Okay.
in order for me to still capture that image. So and in other photography, compared to other photography genres, street photography or urban landscape photography allows you to hone your composition skills, since you should include many subjects. So people moving, cars moving, clouds, shapes of the
Okay.
buildings, trees. So you have to consider all of that and compose it in the right way.
Yeah, it's breaking up. Anyway, yeah, maybe we can. We get the gist from Albert. So he says that you need to be aware of your surroundings and at least be able to know how to work it out. Even if you're stopped by the marshals, it's a good idea to be creative in a way. And finally, David, what your final thoughts?
Yes.
Why should people be into street photography or at least try?
Um, I don't think street photography is for everyone. I think you have to have a love for people and photographing people. When I started out, that was it for me. The draw was people. As I've gotten older, I've developed respect for people. And I'm not so hot to offend them. I'm not a press photographer. There's a big difference. Press photographer has a job to do. And so I photographed at funerals as a press photographer, and it was kind of ghastly, really. But I think everyone who has respect for people needs to get into street, because it'll take you places that you never imagined you would be. You will meet people and enjoy this very short-lived life.
Great, very well said from David Banta. I believe Ryan is raising his hand. Maybe we can hear from Ryan. Hold on, let me pull him up on the screen. Ryan, can you move a bit so that you don't you can cover the light? Hold on.
Hey, yeah, no, I really need to agree with David on this, that press photography is a ghastly thing. But seriously, photographing at funerals, like, mine didn't reach, I've not hit that yet, but I can imagine it not being a nice thing to, and not a nice assignment to get shoved onto.
Amazing. And on that note, we'd like to thank our guests for tonight. Again, we have David Banta, we have Albert Rañada, and Ryan Lim with us tonight. Again, thank you everyone for sharing your time with us. Don't forget to hit subscribe on our YouTube channel, and this will also be on Spotify tomorrow. Just search for Film Factor Podcast. Again, next week we will be celebrating
peace and love.
What are we celebrating next week? Can you see the smoke behind me? Can you see my smoke machine? We're celebrating Halloween here on the podcast. And again, we hope David and Ryan and Albert can join us next week. We are celebrating Halloween here on podcast. Again, this has been Franz. This has been Born in Film on Air. Thank you for joining us tonight. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Portraits have always been what's interesting to me.
I'm happy to greet this gathering of motion picture engineers.
Art is photography and sharing. Taking what you see and sharing it with others.
Don't be afraid. Get out there, shoot some film. I think Photonation can be a catalyst